gather round, horse people, and any other interested spectator. Gather round. We have a problem. I sat down and I watched the Melbourne Cup yesterday, and I'm sure, like many of you, my heart had sunk before the horses had even passed the post the first time. Watching a horse break down and have to be euthanized on track in an international race on the world stage, and knowing how that was going to be perceived in the news and on social media, I was left with a visceral sense of threat. And as I watched those conversations play out, I got a little bit more info of exactly where the threat might lie. If you're expecting me to say that the biggest threat to our way of life as horse people is the animal rights movements, you're wrong. Our biggest threat is actually ourselves, and it is the way we enter these conversations. Now, what I see the animal rights groups do really well is engage the greater public. And sure, they cherry pick facts, they manipulate data, they disseminate information that as horse people we know that it is grossly and factually inaccurate. And we're pretty good at making that known. But what we're not good at is the way we speak to the general public, because we don't engage them in the same way as those animal rights movements. We literally, what I see play out in those conversations of yesterday, what I saw play out was that we actually engaged in those conversations in a war against the common person. So one of the first mistakes that I saw, and heck, this is not just horse people. This applies to every emotionally charged conversation that's ever happened on social media ever. And so it's anti-vaccination, it is politics, it is climate change. What I see happen first is that everyone rushes into that conversation and stakes a position, and then spends the rest of that conversation defending that position. Now, there's a couple of problems with that, because as soon as you stake a position and you defend it, the other people in that conversation are very likely to stake their own positions and then defend theirs. So what you are left is with an argument where neither side is prepared to move and neither side is prepared to listen to each other. Now, as soon as we do that, what we start doing is shouting our own truth and not hearing the truth from the other side. Now, every single person can offer you a seed of truth, and there is reasons why every person forms a position on a particular subject. So instead of shouting our truth and defending our position and going in there in the sense of combat, and filled full of our rightness, what we can do is approach the conversation with curiosity. What's it like to be a non-horse person? Because I've got to tell you, I don't know. Why has that person that you're speaking to, why have they arrived at that conclusion or come to that position? Because those stories can actually be really interesting, and they will contain many seeds of truth that without an inquiry you wouldn't have known. Also, your own position is not ever superior to the position of another person. And if you engage in conversation where you believe that you are 100% right, you have basically stepped into, now this is called transactional analysis, so go look this up if it interests you. You have stepped into the role of a critical parent. And what happens generally is that the other person in the conversation who perceives that you've stepped into critical parent and started judging them, they respond to you like a bratty child and will also then try and drop a judgment bomb on you. So this is the moment where the fight starts. They judge you, you judge them, the judgments just get bigger. The shouting just gets louder. Nobody is closer to the truth. Instead, if we approach these conversations with curiosity and start asking those questions, what you can arrive at is a mutual truth. And if you are prepared to be yourself persuaded, you will find your ability to persuade others increases exponentially. I don't have the research to back that up. The other thing is to approach these conversations with empathy, because everyone on every side is actually far more alike than they are different. And with respect to the Melbourne Cup, anyone entering this conversation has one thing really in common, no matter what side they take, is that they are all interested in the welfare of horses. And so if we can keep that in perspective, we can actually find consensus. And I feel it is that is going to change the course that I feel we're heading into the semi-oblivion. That if we can start looking at others who appear to be different from us and realize all of the ways that we are actually the same, we will take the rightness out of our own language. We will realize the vulnerability embedded in our position, because again, you cannot take a position that is completely invulnerable. And that consensus will actually speak to the heart of the person that we're engaged with. And what's really important is, rather than win arguments, us as horse people, we need to start winning hearts, because that will let the conversation go on. So, I feel like this message is like so important, and I really want you to share it to other horse people. I feel like now is the right time to make a bit of a change in how we address difficult conversations. So I'd really appreciate it if you could share it. And if you could use some of those hashtags if they call your name, do that as well. I think it's really important for our future that we all start dropping empathy bombs, and we take it upon ourselves to save our sport, and that we start winning hearts, not arguments.